All right, I'm going to give this just a minute or two to see if anyone's going to log on live so I can take comments and things like that. So if you have any comments, you just pop those on. I'll check on the side where the comment bar is, and I will as they come in. So I'm going to just take a quick minute to talk about a couple of your historical thinking skills. We're going to start focusing on these more as the date for the exam gets closer. We've talked about them throughout classes and during our discussions and lectures and things like that. So I just want to highlight two of them today, and the first will be periods. And if we're talking about periodization and Vietnam, which is what we're going to cover today, periodization will be putting that event in at least a decade, in a time frame. So periodization with Vietnam would be in the 60s and 70s, mid 60s to mid 70s generally. Now you can talk about the French involvement in Vietnam, which is earlier than that, but when we're talking U.S. history and America's role in that, we'd be looking at mid 60s to mid 70s as far as periodization. It's just a broad category. And then if we periodize other wars, we would look at World War II, say the 1940s. Right now, if you want to narrow the scope, you could say like 40, like starting in 40 to 45. Now, I get World War II for America doesn't start in 1940. All right, but I'm saying that the periodization is the broad category. So you're not trying to get the exact start date, not even the exact year. You're just getting the time frame right. So for Korean War, early 50s. For World War I, the 1910s, particularly the 19 teens. That'd be periodization. So just working on your time frames for major events. And then the other would be argumentation. So an example of argumentation would be using an event to craft an argument. So saying something like post-World War I economic policies against Germany led to the outbreak of World War II. That would be argumentation, particularly if you built your argument using other facts. All right, any questions on that, periodization or argumentation? I just want to give a real quick overview of those. We'll continue to do this as we have for the beginning of Vietnam, how America gets involved in Vietnam, and the early effects of the Vietnam War on American society, particularly American culture. So Vietnam is the result of our containment policy for America. We want to contain the spread of communism, and communism is in Vietnam, and it's in northern Vietnam and threatening the whole rest of Vietnam. So it's threatening both North and South Vietnam. And it really starts partially because of the French failure in Vietnam to control Vietnam. So Vietnam is a colony or colonial holding of France, and the French just can't seem to keep peace and hang on. So as conflict breaks out, the French eventually bail. Right? They're going to ask for the U.S. to intervene, and they're going to bail. And U.S. help or intervention in Vietnam initially is very small scale, and it's more peacekeeping than anything. All right, so this isn't war. And when we see things like the Geneva Conference happen, where there's a temporary partition of Vietnam established to, again, try to keep peace in Vietnam, not let there be all-out conflict in Vietnam. These things occur as peacekeeping endeavors to try to contain communism in one area while also averting war. When we really see the Vietnam War start to develop much larger scale is under Lyndon Johnson. So LBJ is really the reason why Vietnam heats up and gets much more intense. And the reason for that is the Gulf of Tonkin incident. All right, so we're patrolling waters. We have a U.S. military presence around Vietnam, and our destroyers are attacked in the Gulf of Tonkin. And Lyndon Johnson is furious over this, and he riles up the rest of America. Now, he gets Congress to pass what's called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. And the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution allows the president to take, quote, all necessary measures, end quote, to ensure the stability and safety of American forces in Vietnam. All right, so that's a blank check. All necessary measures can really mean anything. It's kind of like um, when Andrew Jackson is sent down into Florida and told to take all necessary measures to ensure stability down there. We see the Seminole War, and Andrew Jackson, not only does he put the smackdown on the Seminoles in the Seminole War, he takes over 2 Spanish forts and hangs 2 British diplomats that he sees as responsible for all the unrest in the area. And this just causes an international incident, but it's largely due to the fact that he was given a blank check. He was told to take all necessary measures. So similarly, we see with Lyndon Johnson, the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, the president's allowed to take all necessary measures. So by 67, we have 500,000 troops in Vietnam. So we go from a few thousand troops in Vietnam to 500,000, all because the president is given the right and the authority to take all necessary measures. Now, as the Vietnam War heats up and it becomes an all-out war and a war for containment, uh, societal tension starts to grow slowly over time. Uh, at first, it's kind of like, why are we there? And I'm not so sure about this, to as we see the Tet Offensive heat up in January of 1968. And by the way, 1968 is an election year, so this is not a great time for the Tet Offensive to happen. So Tet is the New Year, Vietnamese New Year, and the Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese, launch a massive attack against American forces. And we end up, by the way, just side note, we win the Tet Offensive. All right, we suffer massive casualties, but so do the enemy forces, and we end up holding off the advancement, holding off the invasion. But it's just the casualties mount so quickly, and it's a 5-war. Okay, so we have people seeing the action, they're seeing this, and they're able to make a judgment about war. Where in World War II, they got secondhand reports from the media that came in oftentimes days or weeks later. Now we're getting instant feedback on television screens to the American people, and it's something that we're not used to as Americans during this time period. So it causes a lot of pressure for this administration to mount an campaign to end this war quickly. So that's going to cause societal tension because the war is going to keep dragging on and dragging on and dragging on. And after the Tet Offensive, we see very prominent figures in America saying this war is unwinnable. So, for example, Walter Cronkite, who's like the most trusted news anchor in America during this time period, when he declares the war unwinnable, a lot of Americans start switching their opinion to say, okay, well, we supported the war, we supported America, now we're supporting America in their minds without supporting the war. So, right after the Tet Offensive, Lyndon Johnson's approval rating drops to 35%. All right, that's an abominable approval rating. Now, a lot of presidents don't maintain an approval rating above 50%, right? But your approval rating hitting in the mid 30s is really bad. So Lyndon Johnson's approval rating drops dramatically in an election year. So this is really bad timing for all the societal tension to take place because Lyndon Johnson wants to be reelected, and his hopes of being reelected are ultimately going to be influenced by public opinion of him, which is ultimately influenced by the course of the war, which is not going very well. All right, so this war overall and the course of the war is damaging Lyndon Johnson's his opinions, his public polling, his approval rating, and that's just not what the Democratic Party needs during this time. All right, so I'm going to cut this off here for now because I know a lot of you already watched a 45-minute live stream that College Board has put on for today. So I'm going to be keeping these videos and these live streams shorter so that those of you that are doing exam prep aren't watching, an hour and a half of videos every day. So just wanted to close this out by saying, keep up the good work. Those of you that are taking the exam, make sure you continue to check your crash course guides and review them on a daily basis, and also watch those College Board prep videos. If you have any questions for me at any point in time, send me an email. Or as we have the live streams, post a comment and I'll get to those immediately, or if you have an email, I'll get to those very quickly. But keep up the good work. We're almost into April, so the exam is quickly approaching. So stay strong, stay the course. And if you need any help, any assistance with your exam prep or anything, please email me. I'd be happy to help. All right, we'll continue this tomorrow. We're going to, so you're not studying the whole chapter. All right, that's it for today, guys. Have a great day.